We've all gotten used to platforms such as Steam, where we start a game on our PC, we're playing it on Steam, we get to a certain point, we save, we quit, and then later we pick up, let's say, a handheld like our Steam Deck, and without even thinking about it, without taking any action, we're able to start that game and pick up right where we left off. But the question is, can we do something like that for all of our Batocera systems, for our retro games? And the answer is yes. We're going to be taking advantage of a tool called Syncthing. Now, Syncthing is used for basically keeping files and folders synchronized between multiple systems. You can download a copy of Syncthing at syncthing.net. Just go here to the download section and choose a version. Like for Linux, you would choose probably the 64-bit version and install that. Syncthing has a version for just about every operating system you can imagine. As you can see here, there's Windows, Linux. They even have one for Illumos, Solaris, and Mac OS. And there are packages for other Linux distributions like Debian and Ubuntu. So this is where you can get it. I'm not really going to go into how to install it. You don't need to install it on your Batocera systems, uh, but we'll cover that in just a minute. Here's the Batocera wiki page for Syncthing. It covers just about everything we're going to talk about today. It does make a note that starting with Batocera version 33, files can be synchronized across multiple devices using Syncthing. So keep in mind you're going to need at least Batocera version 33. And everything I'm going to be using today is running Batocera version 38. Keep in mind that you're going to, if at all possible, you're going to want to make sure all of your Batocera devices are running the same version. So if you have one running version 38, then try to make sure all the rest are also running version 38. I'm also not going to be making use of save states. I just, I grew up at a time where I just knew, like, if you turned your console off, you had to start from the beginning when you turned it on, and just saving wasn't a thing for a lot of games. I'm kind of used to that. So I'm going to be using this for games that have some sort of built-in save function. Although it should work with save states as well, but there are some caveats. The first one being save states may not be compatible across different emulators. So you're going to need to make sure that you're using the same emulator on all your Batocera machines, which may be hard to do because there are some that, say, on like a Raspberry Pi or on like an Android system, where there's going to be a lot of emulators that aren't available there that are available, say, on your PC or other x86 64 platforms. So it can be a little tricky to make sure you're using the same ones. And then on top of that, even if you're using the same emulator, there's not a guarantee that save states are going to function correctly if they're on different architectures. So there's no guarantee that a save state in an emulator on a Raspberry Pi is going to work on the same emulator on your PC. And that's all covered in the disclaimers here, but the big one here is this first bullet point. There's a risk that you lose the files that are getting synchronized, or an important save file might be overwritten by a Batocera node with an incompatible format. Batocera takes no responsibility for this. You're on your own and are fully responsible if you lose data with this process. And they say to make backups for important files always. And the folder we're going to be touching on all our Batocera systems is going to be the userdata saves folder. So if losing that would be a problem for you, I would say before you proceed at all, go ahead and back up that folder on all your Batocera systems. Make sure you have it in a safe place. And it goes down to talk about cluster configuration, which is what we're setting up, a cluster of Batocera systems that are going to share the save files. Everything under the user data saves folder with each other, and they're going to keep it synchronized between each other. Now, there are a couple of ways you can do this. One of which it talks about here is you would configure each Batocera system to share with each other. And as long as they're powered on, they're going to synchronize with each other when there are updates happening in that saves folder. The other way, and that's the approach that I'm taking here, and why I showed you where to download Syncthing, is I have a virtual machine I've installed that's going to be up and running 24/7. In my case, I chose to install Slackware Linux on it, but you can install, it could be Windows, whatever you want, any flavor of Linux. And all you got to do is get it up and running and install Syncthing on it. So I've already done that. And when you install Syncthing, I'm going to go to this tab here, Slack Sync is what I called it. So this is my server that I've installed Syncthing on. We go into settings, device name, you can just call this whatever you want. I chose to call it Slack Sync. Under GUI, you've got the listen address for the server here. You can put in a username and password if you want. That just means when you visit this web UI, in this case, it's my host name. You can use your IP address. This is of my server on port 8384. 8384 is the default port for this Syncthing web interface. So when you go there, if you've set this, you will get prompted for the credentials. I also chose to use HTTPS for the GUI. And then you would save that. I'm going to get out of here. And what the goal here is going to be is to have all our Batocera systems running Syncthing synchronize their user data saves folder with this central machine. So each one is going to sync up to this, and they're going to get any changes from here, instead of synchronizing directly with each other. So instead of my Raspberry Pi synchronizing with my PC, they're both individually. My Pi is going to synchronize with the server, my PC is going to synchronize with the server, my Steam Deck is going to synchronize with the server, so on and so forth. If we go back to the Syncthing wiki, we get down to the initial setup. Here's one thing I want to point out. This is the command you need to run on your Batocera system if it's 38 or higher. If it's not version 38, if it's version 37 all the way down to 33, you'll need to run this command instead. But we're running version 38, so we're going to take this command. I'm going to copy it here. Now, I've run this on several of my machines, but I haven't run it on my Raspberry Pi yet. So I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so I'm just going to SSH as root into the address of my Batocera Raspberry Pi. Remember, the default password here is going to be Linux, all lowercase, Linux. And here's my Pi for Model B. And we're going to take that command from the wiki. I'm going to just paste it in here. Batocera-services enable Syncthing. We're going to run that. And notice there's no feedback of any kind. We just get dropped back to the prompt. So now I'm going to reboot. And we'll give it a minute to restart and load back up. Shouldn't take very long. I'm also going to use this time to go ahead and power on my Steam Deck. And get it booting up into Batocera. So this is our PC, our server. Just going to check the IP address on my Steam Deck. And by now the Pi should have booted up, so we'll go to its address on port 8384. Yep, and here's our Pi. For this allow anonymous usage reporting, I generally just say no. And this is just letting you know that the GUI doesn't have a username and password. That's fine, I'll just stick one on here. I also like to use HTTPS. It's going to prompt me for those credentials, so let me put those back in. And this warning about Syncthing should not be run as a privileged or system user, just hit OK. Okay, so we're going to start this. I'm going to go here. This is my Steam Deck. And I'm going to say add remote device. Now, I know it's this one. The first 7 characters of it appear as the identification code on the server. So that's how I know this is the server. So I'm going to pick that, and then I'm going to give it a device name. The server is SlackSync, so I'll stick with that as the device name and hit save. And if we go back over to the server interface, it's going to see this device wants to talk and wants to know if we want to add it. So yeah, we're going to say add device. And I'm going to call this one Batocera-Steam Deck. And we see it's connected now. And if we go back to the Steam Deck, it also shows connected to SlackSync. One thing I did want to let me close out the Syncthing download window. I did want to show you if you're having any trouble, if you have local or host-based firewalls on any of your devices, like if you have it on your server, if you're setting it up like I am, you're gonna want to allow certain ports. Here are the ones. The main ones are going to be 22,000 TCP and UDP. That's for the sync traffic. And then port 21027 for UDP. This is for discovery broadcasts on IPv4. So you may have to open up those ports as well. I'll be sure to put all of the links I talk about in the description down below. What I'm going to do now on the Steam Deck is I'm going to add a folder. And I'm going to call it Batocera-saves. Folder ID, you can keep the one they give you, but I'm going to change it to make it a little easier. I'm also going to call this Batocera-saves. The thing with the folder ID is it's going to need to be the same on all the systems in the cluster. So this makes it a little easier. And folder path we're going to set as userdata saves. Under the sharing tab, we're going to check Slack sync. Now, I'm not going to go into any of the more advanced options here today, but there are things like file versioning, ignore patterns, and some advanced options you can look into. But like I said, I'm not going to really cover those today. Now that we've shared a folder with Slack sync, if we go back to the server, it says, hey, this machine wants to share a folder. We're going to say add. And on our server, this is fine. You'll see by default, it's going to share with Steam Deck. So we're good with this. Let's just hit save. And some scanning and syncing starts happening. If we look back at our Batocera system, we'll see the syncing is happening. Or is about to start happening. Okay, now the syncing is happening. And we're up to date, so I'm going to move along. As you can see, we're getting very near the end of this. The Pi is now at 96% syncing. 97, almost there. I've noticed when it gets to like a few kilobytes, a lot of times it'll just stop at 99%. I'm looking at my server, the SlackSync server here. So I'd say we're a pretty good state once they're around 99%. I don't know why that last 1% isn't showing up, but and I'm gonna ignore the out of sync. It looks like there may have been some conflicts. Maybe that's why that last 1% isn't showing up. Now, each time a save gets synchronized to a Batocera system, you're going to need to go into the main menu, game settings, and update games lists. So if you save a game on one system, Batocera system, and then move to another one, after you boot it up, I would wait anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. Then I would update games lists. That's going to give it time to synchronize and then update games lists so you'll be able to see the new files that got synchronized. So we're on the Raspberry Pi right now running Batocera. And I'm going to look for The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Now, I was playing this, I started this game a little earlier on my Batocera PC, and I'm on the Raspberry Pi now. And I saved at a point just before I'd already rescued Zelda in the castle. I'm still in the castle, and I'm on the first floor where you push the thing behind the throne aside and go into the hidden passage. That's where I'm at now. So I want to see if that's picked up, if that's going to show up here on the Pi. Okay, so I'm going to go into this save game. And we're right here, right where I said we would be. So we're going to push that out of the way. I'm going to put the lamp on. Okay, we reached another point where I could save. So if I load up now, you'll see I have 4 heart containers now. And I have the option to start from Link's house or the sanctuary. So I'm going to get out of that. And I'm quickly going to go plug things back into my PC. So now I'm on my Batocera PC, and I'm going to go into game settings and update games lists. And we're going to locate A Link to the Past. And we're going to start it up. And even though we were just playing on the Raspberry Pi, we're going to start this, and you'll see we've got 4 heart containers, and we have the option to start from Link's house or the sanctuary. So that was all due to our new cloud save feature of Batocera, brought to us by the use of Syncthing. And if you found this video useful, I hope you will give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you on the next one.